Today I want to talk about The Flash, and its opening box office predictions are lower than what I suspect Warner Brothers would be liking. Now it says here, The Flash opening box office predictions challenges DC Multiverse hype 70 million on a $220 million budget. Now that is not good. Warner Brothers has said this is one of the best superhero movies ever made, but this movie is facing a lot of struggles, and I think Warner Brothers know that. Its two biggest struggles are they've already announced that this lot of the DCEU films will be the end of it. They are rebooting the DCEU with James Gunn, and he's completely changing the actors in all the movies and introducing new characters and essentially just getting rid of everything that Snyder had built up with his movies. That is one of the problems. The other problem that Warner Brothers has is Ezra Miller. Now, Ezra Miller was always going to be very polarising for this movie. He's had a lot of negative press over the last year or so, from assault to alleged grooming charges, and I think Warner Brothers were just hoping this would all be forgotten by the time the movie came out, but I don't think it has. And I think Warner Brothers know that Ezra Miller is a big problem for this movie, which is why they have leaned heavily on Michael Keaton for the promotion. Every bit of promotion I've seen has Michael Keaton in it. They're hoping that a lot of nostalgia will get a large audience into the theatre. It did for Spider-Man No Way Home, when they introduced all the main villains as previous villains from other movies, but they kept Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield a secret. Yes, it was one of the worst kept secrets, as everybody knew long before the film came out that they were in the movie, but they didn't advertise it. Whereas Warner Brothers have leaned heavily into letting people know that Michael Keaton is in this movie, along with Ben Affleck, and last week it was let's slip that there is another cameo in this movie. But back to these box office predictions. A $70 million opening for a $220 million budget isn't great, and I think it's going to show that this movie will struggle if these predictions are right. So it says, opening weekend predictions for the Flash movie box office are in, and they're quite low, slowing down hype for the upcoming DC movie. At the start of 2023, The Flash seemed like one of the safer bets for Warner Brothers, Discovery and DC. Despite Ezra Miller's legal troubles, The Flash was highly anticipated, largely thanks to the return of Michael Keaton as Batman and the introduction of a new big-screen Supergirl. Hype has since grown thanks to rave reviews for The Flash from a variety of big names like Tom Cruise and Stephen King. However, The Flash box office predictions are now challenging that hype. The Hollywood Report reports The Flash is on track for an opening box office weekend haul of 70 million domestically, though the Wrap's numbers are slightly higher, with a predicted 75 million. International predictions for The Flash box office have yet to come in, but will boost these initial predictions. Still, the DC movie will have to far exceed these predictions not only in the opening weekend but in the following weeks in order to turn a profit on the Flash movie's budget of $220 to $220 million. It's important to note that these predictions are only for domestic opening weekend box office and don't reflect international ticket sales nor the following weekend hauls. As such, it's still very possible the Flash movie box office turns out to be a success. Generally, a movie must make more than twice its budget to be considered a success. For The Flash, that means it would need to earn $400 to $440 million at the worldwide box office in order to be considered profitable. Whilst that would be difficult based on early projections, it's not impossible. I do think it's going to struggle to get there though. It does say it's not impossible, but it will be difficult. Like I say, I think a lot of people have not got much interest in this film, despite Michael Keaton coming back as Batman. I think announcing that James Gunn is rebooting the entire DC universe before the rest of these movies have come out won't have helped. It certainly didn't help Shazam 2, and Ezra Miller starring in this with all the trouble he's been in certainly won't be helping either. The Flash movie's box office opening is on par with Black Adam, which earned $67 million domestically in its opening weekend and just barely eked out a profit. The early projections of Miller's DC movie are well below that of the Batman's opening weekend at $134 million, but are much better than Shazam: Fury of the Gods' first weekend of $30.1 million. However, The Flash has a much higher budget than Shazam 2, so will need to earn far more to turn a profit. It remains to be seen how The Flash performs at the box office once it hits theatres in 3 weeks. It's possible the hype Warner Bros. Discovery has built up around the movie will carry it to a much more substantial opening weekend take. Although early predictions for The Flash dropped last month, reviews have yet to be released, and if they are positive, they may motivate more casual moviegoers to see The Flash. Word of mouth after the film's release would also help if it's positive. So while the Flash opening weekend predictions are quite low, it's still possible for the latest predictions to increase and a DC movie to have a successful box office run. Now this is also another problem for the Flash because it is coming out in the middle of a lot of major high budget releases in the summer. They are coming out literally one a week and they are going to end up cannibalising each other's profits because they're so close together. Will it make a profit? I think it may do. I don't think it's going to take as much as Warner Brothers is going to hope it's going to take. I'll be surprised if it gets to the $700, $800 million mark. I think a lot of people won't bother going to see it because they'll see no point, as this is one of the last movies in the old DCEU run. After this, I think it's just Aquaman 2, which also isn't going to do much at the box office, I don't think. I think Warner Brothers keeping Amber Heard in that film is going to damage that film's chances at the box office. So once those two films are out, it's a new James Gunn era for DC. And I think just knowing that it's at the end of the old lot of movies, I don't think a lot of people will necessarily feel that they need to go see this, or that there's much point in going to see this when it's just getting all restarted again in a year's time. And on top of that, as I said earlier, I think all Ezra Miller's problems and incidents that he's had over the last year or so will be damaging this film. I think Warner Brothers would probably have been better off cutting the loss when Ezra Miller was in the headlines all the time for what he was up to and recasting him and reshooting the film. I think that would have been a better option for them. It would have cost more, but I think it might have got a few more people there. And I do believe David Zaslav was considering scrapping the movie entirely at one point when he took over, much like he did with Batgirl. But if this movie does flop or barely make a profit, I do think David Zaslav will be wondering if cancelling it would have been the right call. And then there was the director of the movie leaking a cameo last week, which I'm not sure if that was intentional or not to try and get some more hype for the movie. If you don't want to know the cameo that was spoiled, I would recommend to stop watching now, as I am going to say who it was. It was leaked by the director last week, and like I said, it may have been an accident, or it may be to try and drum up some more hype for the movie if they know that box office predictions are this low. So this is the last chance for spoiler warning. Okay, everybody that didn't want to know has probably left by now. So the director, Andy Muschietti, said last week that Nicolas Cage was going to come back as Superman. Now, in the 90s, Nicolas Cage was set to play Superman in Superman Lives, a movie which is infamous now for its production problems and getting cancelled in the end. It was meant to be directed by Tim Burton, but a lot of interference behind the scenes ended up getting the movie cancelled. And this cameo was spoilt last week by Andy Muschietti, and I just got to wonder if it is done on purpose to try and drum up some more hype if they have known that the box office opening predictions are going to be this low. But what do you guys think? Do you think the Flash movie will be a success, or do you think it is going to be a flop and struggle to make a profit? Do let me know in the comments below. That's all from me. I'm off to make a fresh cup of tea.